Come on, man.
Dude, I will not be doing this boss again. Like, he just teleported away. How am I stacked up that high already?
No ways.
I just want to get how I was stacked up that high. Hey, that's good enough for your footage, right?
Oh man, that might have been fucking annoying. Now, when we first got a little bit of information on the scintillation before the final shape dropped, I had a pretty good feeling that it was going to be at least really, really good in terms of standards for linear fusion rifles nowadays. And lo and behold, it is really, really good. Honestly, I would say it's the best linear fusion rifle in the game. Point blank. You have some really good perk options in both the third and fourth column, and then you have a really good origin trait that is going to synergize really, really well with this weapon, on top of a very, very important perk in the third column. Now, one thing that we should mention whenever we are talking about linear fusion rifles is if you are using a linear fusion rifle for damage, you're basically just committing to that one weapon. It's hard to do rotations with a heavy weapon that you have to charge every single time, even if it is relatively quick. That's why there's not anything such as a linear fusion rifle rotation, because it's basically proc bait and switch and then shoot the linear and then reproc bait and switch. It's not like rockets or GLs where you can get a little bit creative with swaps and rotations. With linears, you're basically just committing to them. Now, that being said, when this thing is in its good setting, it can crack out. It can do about 165k per shot with bait and switch up, which in terms of a linear fusion rifle, that's really good. That's blowing all the other linears way out of the water. And the only other linear that has bait and switch is the cataclysmic, and that is not an adaptive burst frame, now is it? Now, if we do go ahead and throw up this linear's perk pool, you'll see that there are at least 3 perks that stand out to you in the third column, right? You have Envious Assassin, Rewind Rounds, and Auto-Loading Holster. If I'm gonna be real with you, the best one is definitely Rewind Round. Easily. Rewind Rounds is going to synergize amazingly well with Vice Singer and basically allow you to never have to reload this weapon at all during a damage phase. Me and my buddy, we took this thing for a spin, and I was not having to worry about reloading this weapon whatsoever at all, because Rewind Rounds is going to be proccing off of each part of the burst that you hit per shot. This thing is going to get some very big time effectiveness out of it, and each of those 3 shots in the burst has a chance of proccing Vice Stinger for you, giving you a nice little 1-2 combo of just honestly never having to worry about reloading it, which is this gun's main appeal, on top of it being the second linear to have bait and switch. The cataclysmic, of course, being the first, and this being the first adaptive burst to have bait and switch. It also does have surrounded, but surrounded can be a little bit more annoying to proc consistently, whereas bait and switch is always going to be able to be proc consistently. Now, just for a little comparison, a full juiced up scintillation shot with radiant, a tether debuff, and surges will do about 165k with bait and switch procced as well, of course. Comparing that versus something like an Apex Predator with bait and switch in the same scenario, the rocket's hitting for basically 240k without wolf packs. Granted, the rocket does do a pretty darn big chunk more than just one shot of the linear, which is to be expected as rockets have way less ammo versus something like a linear. But in terms of comparing it against other linears, that is really good. As you can tell in some of the background clips, the linear does have some really good respective damage in total, just because linears have the raw high amounts of reserve ammo. And at 165k per shot with all of the buffs that you would have on top of a 30% debuff, you are literally looking at just 5,000 under 3.8 million at 3,795,000 total damage, which is not too shabby. And if you are a person that likes to use linears, this is definitely going to be one that you gotta go get, because there's not any linear that's outputting like this thing is outputting nowadays. Overall, I would say that the number one role that you want to go after is definitely one with Rewind Rounds in the third third column, bait and switch in the fourth column, Vice Stinger as the origin trait, and then of course something like a backup mag for the weapons mod. And the one that we're using in the background gameplay, of course, does have the rewind rounds bait and switch, a charge time masterwork, and because it's an adept version, I just went ahead and slotted on an adept mag mod.